It's difficult, Afghanistan. The problem with it is that you never quite know how dangerous or not it's going to be. Kabul, for example, is really very safe. I mean, occasionally something happens, but something happens in London occasionally too. So it's rather like a French finishing school. It's full of gorgeous French girls and rather handsome Italian archaeologists and sort of, beautiful Spanish people working for NGOs and all this sort of thing. And then you go 5 miles outside and suddenly there's burning cars and sort of bullet holes and it's all a bit different. And the key thing is I always hire a fixer. I normally go as a journalist, so I have a kind of newspaper behind me, and you hire a fixer and they are your radar that tells you where you can and can't go.
And they pull you out if it's...
Yeah, and it's difficult to know. I mean, when I was first there, Herat was incredibly safe. It felt like going on holiday in Turkey or somewhere with umbrella pines and you were in these amazing ruins, some of the great Islamic monuments of the world with no other tourists. It was very easy and very enjoyable. The next town, Ghazni, is incredibly dangerous, and you wouldn't 5-10 minutes in the street. So it's very difficult to tell. That's the problem. Some areas are safe, some areas are not. The National Archives in Kabul are excellent. They've survived, weirdly enough. There's this beautiful Ottoman-style 19th century palace, which is the National Archives. Didn't, in the end, have a great deal for me because it really gets going in the 1860s and 70s. Excellent collection if you're writing about 19th century, late 19th century or early 20th century Afghanistan, but not so good for me. But I found there was an amazing amount of stuff that was republished by Afghan historians in the 50s and 60s in Dari, a magazine called Ariana, and these nationalist historians working in the 50s and 60s produced a huge amount of material which I've used in this book, which they found in private libraries in the 50s and 60s. And it's impossible to imagine if you're writing history of the Second World War that you'd use any British sources. You have to be taken seriously by necessity. Read the Russian, the German, the French, at least. Probably the Japanese and everything else too. Weirdly, that's never been the case for so much imperial history. People think they can just, a few nice East India Company letters and the British, of course, have great letter writers and record keepers. And you've got the picture. It's incredibly easy to find all this material. I mean, you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to run this stuff to ground. I mean, go to a really good Afghan library or as I went, to the Book Bazaar. There's one old boy who bought up a lot of the private libraries in the 50s and 60s, and they're on sale. So in a single morning, guided by a Fulbright scholar who knew the ropes, an Afghan guy who was a Fulbright scholar in Princeton, he came down with me, and we left 2 hours later with, I was about, I suppose, $400 poorer with enough books to write my book with, really. I could have gone home and done no more research. It was very much the realization that history was replaying that made me go back to this story. Go back in the sense that it was a story that anyone's Peter Hopkirk's great game, which anyone who writes in this region starts off by doing. This is an old chestnut, this story. It's been written many times. But I don't think it's ever been written with the Afghan sources, and that's in a sense the contribution I make to this. And they're huge and voluminous and easily accessible and easily translatable. And I've worked on these sources with my long-time collaborator Bruce Wannell, who's one of the great Persian scholars of the country, who I'm going to see on Sunday actually. And Bruce is a fantastic translator, and he's managed to wring wonderful resonance out of these texts. And so I owe a lot to him. Well, Karzai was very keen on this book. I was very lucky in that he someone gave it to him when it came out in India, before it came out in Britain. And he invited my family to come and visit him in March. And I recently went back in Ramadan when he was fasting, and the whole government kind of shuts down a bit during Ramadan. And so he invited me for a whole succession of interviews after iftar at night. And I would turn up at the palace about 10 o'clock at night when he'd finished his work. And we'd talk till midnight or 1 in the morning. And I got this huge body of material now, which I'm writing up for the New York Times magazine. Whether I do more with it in the long term, I'm not sure, because it's a 10,000 word article, but I could have done a small biography or something for the amount of material he gave me. And it's an extraordinary story with huge parallels, obviously, to this. He is the chief of the Popazai tribe today, the Shah Shujah, the return the king who returned of my title was the chief of the Populzai in the 19th century. So he feels himself very much as the successor of Shah Shujah. History is so often contingent on accident. And there was every reason to believe that Shah Shujah could have come back at the moment that he was assassinated. He was assassinated not by his enemies, not in defeat, but he was assassinated by a godson who was jealous that he'd given favour to one of his rivals. And it was one of those chance accidents. And the only reason that he got close to Shujah was that Shujah was very fond of him. And so when he appeared, he got out of his palanquin, left his bodyguards behind, and then the guy shot him. And these sort of accidents of history change everything. And now he's regarded as, you know, the dog's bollocks and buried in an unmarked grave, and no one's got time for him. But a slightly different shake of the dice, and he could be the founder of modern Afghanistan and remembered in a very different way.
It's quite a classical demise in a way, isn't it? Being
Yeah.
suddenly on your own.
No, it's a very tragic ending, and his body gets left unburied by the side of the road. And to this day, it's in an unmarked grave. Probably it's the body in his father's, the undercroft of his father's tomb in Kabul, but no one knows. No, Jaipur is my other great love when I'm not writing these books, and in 10 years it's grown. When I first gave a reading in Diggy Palace in 2004, 14 people turned up, of whom 10 were Japanese tourists who got lost. Last year we crossed 250,000. I think it is now the largest literary festival in the world in terms of number of people turning up. But other festivals, including Cheltenham and Edinburgh, have more authors, but we have often 5,000 people to a single session. And we've got a good lot this year. Yeah. We got Jonathan Franzen, Jhumpa Lahiri, Michel Houellebecq, Amartya Sen, lots of philosophers, Roy Monk. No, it's a spectacular, lots of British historians, Anthony Beevor, Artemis Cooper, Nicholas Shakespeare. Got some good luck.
But it's all free.
Totally free. All you have to do is book a hotel.